Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Betting Pros NFL podcast. I'm your host, Dan Harris. With me, of course, is Matt Peralt. You can find us on Twitter at DanHarris80 and at Sports Talk Matt, the hottest NFL bettor that I've ever seen in my life. Matt, what a week for you, man.
Well, it wasn't just the NFL, but yeah, I mean, when you get on a roll like this, you just kind of ride it and you just hope that it doesn't stop. I mean, at the time of taping, we've hit 20 of our last 23 bets on the Daily Juice. If you got a bet late in during the week on Wednesday, you actually won because I got a worse number than actually what went off at. It was a Wisconsin under basketball play that I had at 138 and 134, 33 different books. And people bet it. By the time the morning came around, the number had dropped so much that it was a beneficiary to the Daily Juice audience. So really, it's 21-2 for certain players out there. So yeah. I mean, when it's like this, I went 5-0 in the Circa, I went 5-0 in the Westgate. We went 4-1. I mean, it's been a crazy week.
Yeah, well, first, sorry for keeping it to just the NFL, but that's what people are here for the picks.
Correct.
So that's why I mentioned that. But number two, you saw the board so clearly last week because even one of the ones that we went to, which was the Colts, we kind of lucked out in that game. And you were on the other side. Boy,
that was
right. You were on the other side of that one originally. So
Yeah, I wanted the Texans, and I mean, it very easily could have been the Texans if it wasn't for that fumble by Deshaun Watson at the goal line.
That's the right side. Yeah. That was the right side, yeah. But whatever, we'll take it, obviously. As you said on the Daily Juice, things even out. This is the whole point of how it works. But we'll break down every game this weekend. Let's recap the DraftKings contest. As Matt said, we went 4-1. We hit on the Saints laying 2.5 to the Falcons, the Colts laying 3.5 to the Texans, as I just mentioned, the Patriots getting 0.5 point from the Chargers. That was not close. The Washington football team getting 8.5 from the Steelers, and we missed on the Raiders laying 7.5 to the Jets. Now, I said last week on the show that I thought Matt and I needed to go 14-1 over our final 3 weeks. Remember, we have one bye week still to go. Matt attacked my math as usual. Matt goes, and he later on realized that he was wrong. So we did need to go 14-1 to hit 60%. Right now, that is still the cutoff for being in the money. We went 4-1, so we've got to sweep. Oof. We've got to sweep right now. It may not end up that way. It may be a little lower, but right now, that's where it is. So let's get into this right now, Matt.
Though?
What'd you say?
Where are we?
We're at the low 200s out of 691.
So 290?
So the top, we're 215, I think.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, we're there. I mean, and I think the top 80 right now are getting paid because it's tied and stuff like that. So we're there. We gained, 100 spots last week with a 4-1. We will move up if we get it. And remember, a lot of people, it depends on the bye weeks that are remaining. We have one. So one of the next 3 weeks could be this week. Don't know for sure. We have to take one of our bye weeks. But Matt, let me ask you, because we don't talk about this other than one pick, which we'll get to, which my guess is going to be your top pick. We don't talk about it much. You loved last week. I didn't. You loved last week coming in. Do you love this week as much?
I don't love it. I like it. I don't love it yet.
Okay.
I'm coming around on it, but I'm in the I'm in the beginning part of dating. I'm not marrying it yet, but I'm close. I'm coming around. There are games I like.
Okay, well, let's talk about it now. Let's start with you. And, there was one game that we talked about, and there was a game that we had to talk about because it's a game that if we like, by the time people are listening to this, we will have already played, and if so, we will play it on Twitter. Is that your number one pick of the weekend, Matt?
It is, and it's if you listen to the Daily Juice, you already have this, but I'm all over the Rams tonight, and I think this is, if you look at the alternative point spreads in Vegas, it's 10.5 for a reason, because I think this is a 10-point victory for the Rams tonight. I don't think the Patriots are going to score. I think the under is a play as well, but I think the Patriots, I have it at 27-17, somewhere in that range, 24-14, somewhere in that range here for the Rams, and I don't get the Patriot love. I don't get the Patriot play. I don't get the money coming in on the Patriots. I know all these stats are pointing towards the Patriots on a Thursday night victory, short week. They stayed out there out west. They're beating the Chargers 45-0, blah, blah, blah. All those stats have Tom Brady at the quarterback spot, not Cam Newton. Don't think the Patriots can score at all here against the Rams. I think it's a complete mismatch right now for what the Patriots are good at doing. I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball, and I think you can play man-to-man defense with Jalen Ramsey in that secondary and put 8 in the box and say, go ahead and try to run the football. And the Patriots, I don't think they've got an offensive line capable of blowing out holes like that. So Rams, 10 points or more tonight.
I can usually, I feel like, make a case for myself as to how one team's going to win a game, especially when it's a single-digit spread like this and under a touchdown. It's really hard for me to see a way. I mean, this is dumb because people, by the time they're listening to this game has been played already. So yeah. I don't want to go crazy with it. It really is tough to see the way that the Patriots win. And the consensus spread, by the way, it's 5.5 in our contest, which, by the way, one lesson I've learned is that the Matt Peralt-isms are full of nonsense, okay? Matt will make a rule until it's not a rule. Also,
have I bet a 5.5?
I don't think so. No.
But the fact that I hold to my rules. I'm betting this one because I don't care. You can give me up to 9.5, and I'm still taking the Rams.
All right. The other thing that I've learned is that if I'm on a position, Matt usually won't listen to me. But if he goes and talks to quote unquote smart people who are also on the same side, he's willing to be convinced. But regardless,
of course. Why wouldn't I do that?
I get it. What's weird, Matt, is the consensus line that we're showing like across is 4.5. Yeah. Not even 5.
There will be books before this game kicks off that will be at 4.
Why? I mean, I legitimately can't figure it out other than,
Bill Belichick versus Anthony Lynn has them convinced that it's Bill Belichick versus Sean McVay is as big of a mismatch as last week.
That's not, though. Anthony Lynn is like in a class by himself.
Correct.
I mean, you've seen them. Obviously, they in the Super Bowl, like they figured out how to keep the Rams from scoring points, but they had different personnel. The only way I really see this is if, like, the differential in special teams, Patriots are really good,
Rams stink.
Right. They're third in DVOA and special teams. The Rams are 30th. So it's going to take something like that. So I'm going to put it in. I mean,
think about the logic of that, though. You're going to bet.
No, you're right.
That the Patriots are going to score points in special teams where it hadn't happened all year, and they blocked a field goal for a touchdown, had a punt return for a touchdown. So it's going to happen in back-to-back weeks after not happening all year. Come on. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think it's going to be in the picks. And by the time you're listening to this, we're either probably really happy or really
we haven't taken any advantage. I mean, there have been numerous Thursday games. We taped this on Thursday this season that we both have liked and said, oh, well, it's Thursday. We're taping it. We're not going to take it. And we have not taken advantage of the rule that you can place one bet Thursday. That's it. Correct. The one pick and then the other 4 later in the weekend. So we haven't taken advantage of this. And I just think this is a situational play for me. Patriots, back-to-back weeks on the West Coast, and look, take all these numbers about like teams that were favored on the road that win and come back at home on a Thursday at home, lose. They're 3-9-1 against the number. I don't care. I don't care what numbers are. It's this Patriots team without much talent on the wide receiver core, no tight end to catch the football. I mean, they already saw the Damian Harris Wildcat against the Chargers, so you can't even, you can't even shock them by going with that because they've already seen it. So, I mean, look, again, tomorrow when this drops, I might be looking like an idiot, but if the Patriots win this game, I'm ecstatic. As a Patriot fan, I'm in love. I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing I could say is that I think the public still, because of Belichick and because of the leftovers from Brady, looks to get excited about the Patriots and, a game where they win 45-0 and they beat Arizona. That I could see the money coming in necessarily on the Patriots, but the sharp players, this just doesn't seem like the right line to me.
Well,
but
anyway. I mean, that's what I don't get because I don't see everyone I'm talking to. It's Rams.
Right.
And then people that are on Twitter are like, well, the experts are picking the Patriots. I'm like, what experts picking the Patriots? No one I'm talking to. So, I mean, no one I see, no one I follow. Everyone that I know is on the Rams big tonight. So, I don't know. I mean, I feel comfortable with people I trust that they, like you and other people, feel like, how are the Patriots scoring? And Belichick's a master, but I mean, this is a really tough spot in my mind.
Yeah, me too. So I'm almost positive we're going to be picking this game. So I'm going to put it in right now with pencil, but we're going to assume that's in, and then we'll have a fun night going on here. Okay, so that was actually my number one, but that shows you just kind of how I knew you were going to go with it. So I figured that we were going to go with it. I don't have strong feel like I have like 5 or 6 games that I'm like, all right, I could do this.
Well, there's one stat to bring up here. So 10 of the 16 games this year have road favorites. So it's an awkward week for that reason. We got a lot of short lines.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of big lines, but there are a lot of short road favorites, like 2.5s, 1.5s, 3s, all over the board, which is kind of tough because it's really, on a neutral field, it's a 6-point line if you're favored on the road by 3. So it's a little bit of a difficult week for that reason.
Yeah. Okay. So here's one. I'm going to throw this one out, but don't, this is not a this is my number one or my number two. Like, it's legitimately a large conglomerate.
Legitimately, that's a great word. Legitimately, that's wow.
Yeah, how about there? I'm going to go with the Bucs laying 6.5 to the Vikings in Tampa. So here's my rationale, and then we can talk about it. The Bucs are, of course, off a bye, which I think is pretty important. I don't know if there's ever been one. I should research it, whether there's ever been a week 13 bye. And for an old, quarterback like Brady, but just for the team, I think they really needed to catch their breath. There are a couple of concerns here. Mike Evans, was downgraded. He was still battling the hamstring. Then I guess he didn't play today, which never is a good sign. But Chris Godwin sounds like he's going to be fine. Ali Marpet is finally going to come back. That's a big sort of thing. And really, I think when the Bucs struggle, they just struggle against good defenses. The Vikings, if they could get pressure, fine, but they don't get a ton of pressure. They're dealing with injuries themselves with Hendricks, who's down on defense. Kyle Rudolph doesn't sound good, like he's going to go. I think really, they're going to be able to stop Dalvin Cook for the most part. Cook is fantastic, but it's a great run defense. And then I think if you're going to put it in Kirk Cousins' hands, like, good luck. I like to fade Kirk Cousins, and we talked about how last week. So I think this is a game where the Bucs actually come out. They need to win. They come out at home and put up a big number on the board, and under a touchdown, I feel okay about it. So the Bucs laying 6.5 is one of my picks.
I like it. It's on my list. I like it. Okay. And I like it for a couple of reasons. One, Brady coming out of the bye, traditionally Tom Brady, this is with Belichick, obviously, but coming out of the bye, they normally have new wrinkles. They normally put in either new route trees or they put in new type of alignments. And so it changes up what they were doing. And I think Bruce Arians will be smart enough to do this. The only reason why I hesitate, the only reason why it's not higher on my list is because I am hoping and I am borderline praying that Bruce Arians has changed the offense during the bye week to incorporate more short passes to stop this down the field crap.
Yeah.
And I know you got Mike Evans and Godwin and whatnot, but let's talk about slant routes. Let's talk about, guys in the slot. Let's bring back what was working earlier in the year with Scotty Miller. Let's use the tight ends as much as they were before, not just in the red zone. If they do that, I think they'll put up a big number here, and they'll score a lot on that secondary for the Vikings, and I think they'll cover the line easily. So that's my only hesitation. That is Bruce Arians really that stubborn, or does he finally wake up and realize what he's got at quarterback and put in better pass plays for his quarterback? So
I think he's been disappointing already. The fact that he's like, why are you still doing this? Like, you and I can sit here and watch this, and as smart as the two of us are and as much football as we watch, like, he's an NFL coach. Like, we know that this is not the game plan you should be running right now with Tom Brady. Like, it's very clear what you should be doing. So the fact that he hasn't done it yet is nerve-wracking. But again, I agree. Off a bye, they need to win at this point. This is nothing. And again, this is as much a fade of Kirk Cousins, which we like. We're always like, when's the Kirk Cousins fade game? It really was last week, I guess.
Yes.
This is a team that could have easily lost to the Mike Glennon-led Jacksonville Jaguars. They're just not that good. I think the Bucs come out here. I think they make a little bit of a statement. So I do like the game. Again, not something far and away, but let's put it on the pencil list, and we'll talk about it going in. But we're on the same side, so that's good. Who's your next one?
Okay, so I've got two teams that I'm really concerned about in December as to what they've done early versus what they've done late. One's the Raiders and one's the Cardinals. First, let's start with the Raiders. Indianapolis in our pool laying 2.5. There's been money here that's trying to push this to 3. It probably will be 3 by the time the game kicks off or higher. But I'm really concerned about where the Raiders are, and I think there are some legitimate issues with that offensive line with no Richie Incognito. They're not running the ball nearly as successfully as they were. Derek Carr, after starting out really hot, has now started to turn the football over and starting to really regress. Yes, Waller is an absolute beast, and I love the guy, but Aguilar's come around a little bit. I know you've got some third down guys who can move the chains, but just the fact that the Jets were in that game and they should have won the game if it wasn't for what I heard it today, a suicide play call by Greg Williams, which I thought was an awesome way of describing the zero.
Greg Williams is my hero. Don't worry about it. Greg Williams is my hero.
That he did to go ahead and hit Ruggs down the sidelines. Ruggs fumble in the football, not looking good. That game was on him if it wasn't for that. I just think Indianapolis, because there's no pressure coming on Phillip Rivers, I think Pittman has really stepped up and played nicely. Obviously you got T.Y. The running game's coming around. I think Indianapolis is just a much better overall football team here. I'm laying less than a field goal. I want Indianapolis minus 2.5.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Right now I think we're on the, we've got 3 games that I feel pretty decent about. It was on my list. I have backed the Colts a lot this year. This game against the Texans scared me a little bit because I really thought that this was one that the fact that you probably should have lost to a team without Will Fuller, without Roby, really nerve-wracking. Rivers is clearly hobbled by the toe, but I agree. They found a way to get T.Y. Hilton involved, whether he was fully healthy or not. They still have Michael Pittman Jr. They are thankfully turning it over to Jonathan Taylor on the ground a little more. And their offensive line, by the way, is getting healthy. That is a big deal for them. They were beat up a little bit. I think they're going to be basically at full strength in this game. So yeah, I'm good with this. It's one of the ones that was on my list. So I feel pretty good about it. And yeah, and again, I like to just see what our consensus is on the bet analyzer. 74% are on Indy as well. That seems to be the right side. Under a field goal, Matt, that seems to be the right side to me. Now, what was the other one that you were talking about? Arizona?
No. Well, yeah. So the Giants are catching 2.5 points against the Cardinals at home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think much like the Cardinals, much like the Raiders, the Cardinals are flailing. And the Giants are playing really good smash mouth December football.
Yep.
I like what Joe Judge is doing. I don't care who plays, whether it be Colt McCoy or Danny Dimes. I don't really care. Mm-hmm. I know getting Fitzgerald back is big, but he lost 9 pounds during his COVID-19 battle, and he definitely is not going to be 100%. You just don't come back. I've had this darn virus. You don't come back that fast, and look what happened to Cam Newton. Look how kind of you sometimes are just in a mind fog. I was in a brain fog for a good month and a half after COVID. It's not something you want to play around with. I just think the Cardinals are in trouble. I think the schedule is going against them. I don't think Kyler Murray is healthy. And the Giants, I just think they're coming around and they're playing really good football in December. Catching 2.5 points at home, I like the Giants.
Yeah, I don't hate it. It's not one of my favorite. Like, I don't put it in the same bucket as, the Colts with the Raiders. I would lean that way. If I'm forced to pick a side, I would. It's just, it's weird, Matt. Sometimes I find it hard, we're into week 14, and I look at players really closely because I project and everything before the season coming in. It's just hard they're playing really well, the Giants, their defense in particular. And if it's legitimate, then yeah, this is the right side for sure. And again, Murray, a lot of it is on Murray, who doesn't look fully healthy. I don't feel that comfortable with it. Like, I'm still
waiting. Stopped running. Murray stopped running.
I know.
He's their best weapon.
I know.
It has to be because he's not healthy.
Yeah.
He's just not scattering around like he normally does, picking up first downs and burning defenses.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's put it on the maybe list. I really want to know your feelings on this one, Matt, because again, you were the Bills fader of the whole season.
On the list.
You were all over them.
On the list.
They're on the list. Wait. They're on the list to take the Bills?
Oh, no.
The Steelers.
Oh, yes.
Good. That's where I'm at too. Very good. Okay. I got nervous for a second.
Oh, no.
They're getting 2.5 points against the Bills. This strikes me as a massive overreaction to me. As to what we saw, the Bills looked awesome.
The line flipped 5 points.
Is that what it was?
It flipped 5 points. It was 2.5 for the Steelers. It's now 2.5 for the Bills.
Yeah.
5 points? Get out of here.
And they look great. And you were on that game. You were all over that game. I was on the other side of that game, frankly. I thought the 49ers would find a way to win. They weren't even close. Yeah, you were all over that. And it's like the Steelers, give me a break. Like, they can lose a game. Everyone's like, they're not going to go undefeated on the season. Big deal. Washington football team is underrated. They have a very strong defense. What does make me nervous is the fact that they are so horribly beat up at linebacker at this point. Robert Spillane is down. Vince Williams just went on the COVID list. They're really beat up there. Even Hayden is hurt a little bit, but there are spots. I think the one thing that you can think about is Mike Tomlin is kind of a really predictable coach when it comes to betting, right? You fade him when they're like favorites, right? When it's the game that they should win. And when there's a rah-rah moment, when there's people aren't believing in me, that, this is what we need to come out, that's when you jump right on because he's an incredible motivational coach. Josh Allen looked like the best quarterback in football this past week, but we've seen it. We've seen it now for a couple of seasons. He is super inconsistent.
Yeah.
He's going to come out one day, he's going to look like the best quarterback in football, and the next day you're going to be like, what is this human being doing at this moment with the ball? So sounds like I don't really need to convince you. The home field advantage, by the way, you know that. Like I fear Buffalo when there are fans there. Like
right.
that's when it gets nervous. Now it means nothing at this point. So.
I also think if you go back and watch the game against Washington, how many drops did Ebron have? 9?
But they always have
10?
that many. The unfortunate part is that they are always dropping those balls. Like Deontay Johnson and Eric Ebron, they're drop machines. But my guess is, though, that like I wouldn't want to be like playing for Tomlin at this point with all those drops, right?
Well,
like
in the Ravens game, they didn't look good.
Right.
So, I mean, they've played a bunch of games where they've had to play a ton of. Look, I just think this is a prime time game. Everyone's selling on the Steelers. You know, maybe they'll run the ball a bit more. I mean, the Bills can't stop anybody running the football. So I think that maybe they kind of go back to old school Steeler football and run. But
that's a little right. That's part of the unfortunate part is that the Steelers really have no run game at this point. They were beat up on the offensive line, but they choose just to throw. That's fine. But you're going to, I don't know. Also, this last game, and I'm analyzing it more from a fantasy football perspective. I do not know why Chase Claypool suddenly was not on the field nearly as much as he had been in the past. He's a great playmaker. My guess is they'll get him out there more. So, yeah, I just think this is a bounce back spot for the Steelers.
I love it. I mean, 2.5, catching 2.5. Yeah. I'll bet it. I'm waiting to see if I can get 3 or more.
Right? Oh,
so,
I'll be all over it
before I bet it, I want 3 or higher. But it's a primetime game for the Pittsburgh Steelers here to come back. And I mean, look, anytime I can fade Josh Allen, I'm fading Josh Allen.
I know. And after a game where you were like, nah, Bills, for sure, Bills. I was like, wow, okay, I don't know where we are. So, yeah, okay, good. That's another one then. All right, what do you got? You got any others that you like?
So there's a couple other that I want to talk about. And I wouldn't say necessarily that I'm in love with this. But how do you feel about the Philadelphia Eagles catching 7.5 against New Orleans?
I have no idea how to analyze it with Hurts. I mean, talk me through it because I really don't know what we're going to see. I think
watching when Hurts came in, what I saw was a spark.
Yeah,
I saw an offense that was working. I saw receivers getting open. I saw Sanders running hard. I saw the offensive line, which is a complete mess, but they were blocking well enough. And I think because the line's a mess, you need a mobile quarterback who can run around, and Hurts can run over people. He's tough enough to run through linebackers if he needs to. So I think I saw something there that made me go, okay. And then Taysom Hill has been running the ball really effectively, but the run defense for the Eagles is not horrible.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I'm catching more than a touchdown here, 7.5. I think everyone's going to go, Taysom Hill and the Saints, here we go. But it's their third consecutive road game for New Orleans, which is something you almost never see in the NFL. 3 consecutive games on the road is really, really rare. And if you want to go old school gambling adage, you always fade the team that's on the road for the third consecutive week.
Right. And now is the road, I mean, does it mean as much with the fact that there are like few or no fans in most stadiums?
I think it's more travel. It's more that you're constantly on the move. You're never situated in your home or in your bed. You're always, getting up and flying. And then with all the COVID protocols and everything else that goes into it, I just think the Saints, I think they'll win the game.
Yeah.
But I'm catching 7.5 points. Like, that hook matters to me a lot there.
Well, it's funny because I'm looking at the consensus lines available in the market, and it's 6.5 now. So that would probably be a different story for you, right? If that were the line in the contest.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, 6.5 is dangerous. I still would look at it at 6.5, but 7.5, it's on the list because it's 7.5.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think that one's kind of iffy for me, mainly just because I think what you're saying is right. First of all, the offense is going to look better just because it can't possibly look worse. Mm. And what's funny is that as bad as that offense has looked, I mean, they should have covered against the Packers, if not for the Aaron Jones 80-yard run at the end, right? They were going to cover that spread despite looking like the worst team in football. Their defense is legitimate, but it makes me a little nervous for me to not really know what we're going to, see from Hurts, given that now this is not a random, let's put in this guy, let's see what happens. Oh, everybody doesn't know how to react. Is he going to run? Is he not? Suddenly these very, very slow wide receivers are getting open when you give a team with a very strong defense 6 days to prepare for the game, whether or not it's still going to be quite that easy. So I think it's more something where if forced to pick a side, I think I would go Eagles, but I don't think I'm ready to put that one in the contest. So that's fair one. Let me throw out some other ugly games, which I also do not like at all. This is, if we talk about ugly teams, Matt, that I'm like, why don't we bet on this team? It's usually the Falcons. You were surprised that I wasn't on them last week. They are laying 2.5 points to the Chargers. This is basically as much of a fade of Anthony Lynn and the Chargers as it is to do anything with the Falcons. But the Falcons are playing better. I mean, let's talk about the Chargers. I'm not advocating.
I'm going to blow your mind here.
You're on the Chargers?
Yeah.
Matt. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's interesting to me. Matt, this is what I was looking this up today. Okay. So weighted DVOA is basically takes into account your most recent games.
Yeah.
The worst team in the league in total DVOA, offense and defense. Who do you think it is? Who's the worst possible team in football right now? Forget about the Chargers. The worst possible team. The Jets, right?
Oh, yeah.
They are last. They're last in DVOA. The second worst team in weighted DVOA is the Charger. The better teams than the Chargers, the Bengals, the Broncos, the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Lions, the Eagles. They are second to last. They are playing terribly. They are incredibly terribly coached. And again, I think under Raheem Morris, the Falcons have been better.
They have. But should they be laying points to anybody? Should the Falcons be laying points to anybody?
That's a very, very fair point. That's a very fair point. And again, I just like to see where generally the experts sort of go, just generally how it breaks down. And it's 58% are on the Chargers. So not an overwhelming sort of thing, but that is probably the feeling about it. And it's on the road. But for me, man, I don't know. At this point, I'm probably just going to fade the Chargers every single time.
I think Herbert's got a chance to put up a big number here against a crap defense.
Yes.
So
I agree with that.
That's why I'm not so worried about the Chargers defense as much as I think that Herbert throws for like 350.
Yeah, that's
true. Has a monster game because
maybe we'll talk about that.
Back to back weeks he hasn't done well, but I just think Herbert's going to bounce back and look like he did about a month ago when he was passing the ball on everybody.
Yeah, no, I mean I think all of that is fair. For me, I couldn't back. There's under no circumstances could I back the Chargers in any game at this point because I just don't feel confident. I mean, Matt, they were that game against the Patriots. We like the Patriots. We like them to win that game.
I like them I like the Pats the last 2 weeks, and we've been on them the last 2 weeks.
That's true. And now we're off them. And now we're off them this week
because it was. Look, this is sometimes you just see the board really clearly. Yeah. And this is what I said. I said win over the Cardinals, win over the Chargers, lost to the Rams.
Yeah. So that's true. Let's hope you're right. If you're listening right now, you know whether or not Matt was right.
Right.
Or whether they were. All right. So let's skip that game. You got a couple other games you thought were interesting.
I want to talk through Ravens Browns.
Yes.
Okay, so we were talking about fading quarterbacks and fading Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't this the greatest fade spot on Baker Mayfield?
Yeah.
Given what he just did and all the hype and all the running around and all the waving of the arms and all the nonsense he was doing, isn't this now the time to fade him and to say the Ravens are going to get right here and smash the Browns?
It's on my list. Yeah.
Okay.
It's on my list. This is Monday night, I believe, right?
Correct. Yep.
And the Ravens are laying 1.5 in our contest. Right now, the consensus line is up to 2.5. So, this has to be. I like the Browns, and I've got a future that I'm feeling pretty good about with Stefanski winning Coach of the Year. I think he's done a good job with this team, but this team. And you were on them also, Matt. I mean, I don't know. Whatever you were drinking last week, I want some of it because you were all over the Browns too. I wouldn't let us take it.
Yep.
You were all over the Browns, over the Titans in that game. But I'm totally ready to fade the Browns in this spot. And I think the Ravens are going to. They know what they need to do. At this point, they know they basically got to win out. Essentially, I saw some stat that said there's like a 40% chance that a 10-win team, even with the extra playoffs, is going to miss the playoffs in the AFC. They've got to win. They know they've got to win. So, I'm totally good with fading the Browns and going with the Ravens in this spot for sure.
I love this. Again, this is a short number. It's 1.5, so it's basically a pick. And I just think in terms of coaching, I like Stefanski. I do, but I think this is you're getting into December must-win territory for the Ravens. They had their swoon. And Lamar is back. Lamar's running. And, I mean, they should have all three of their running backs in this game coming up on Monday night. It's prime time for Baker Mayfield. And oftentimes that means big-time fade opportunity for Baker Mayfield.
And again, I mean, Zeke looked better than I expected him to look. But I think if you've got another week of health from Brandon Williams and from Calais Campbell, the run defense is going to be very good if you're going to force Baker Mayfield. And again, remember, they don't really have any wide receiver that could possibly scare you. Jarvis Landry is a fine player at this point in his career, but Rashard Higgins isn't scaring you. I mean, Austin Hooper is not. They've got to run the ball. And if the Ravens focus on taking that away, I also don't think that the Browns are really going to be able to stop Lamar Jackson, they'll get Mark Andrews back. Hollywood Brown is playing better. So, yeah, I like it. I'm with you on that one. All right, let me throw out. How do you feel about the Titans laying 7.5 to the Jaguars in Jacksonville?
Yeah, this is one of the games I've looked at closely, and boy, last week scared me a little bit because I was on the Jags last week, plus 10 against the Vikings.
Yep.
And I'm wondering, can they keep the game close? Because they're going to throw in every down. They don't care. Jags don't care. Jags are just chucking the football all over the place. And I'm a little nervous about that defense for the Titans.
Yeah.
They just got shredded by the Browns.
Yeah, I agree. The biggest thing for me is, again, I don't love this game. It's over a touchdown. And the Jags have an innate ability to hang around somehow. And again, remember last week, as much as they almost won that game, I mean, that the first touchdown of the week was that preposterous catch by Laviska Shenault, which should have been picked. They're getting lucky to hang around. And you can see an angry Titans team in this one, right? An embarrassed Titans team. Now, A.J. Brown has not practiced this week, and he did hurt his ankle in that game. He came back. So if A.J. Brown didn't play, I really wouldn't like him that much. But I don't like the 7.5. That's the side I'd be on. But I don't like it better. We have 5 games right now, Matt, and we'll get to them. But 5 games, I'm totally fine with at this point. I don't like the Titans better than that. But if you were forced to choose a side, do you like them at 7.5, or would you prefer
I guess so, because Henry just runs the football like crazy and just, chews up the clock, and they win 28-10 or something. I can see it. But I'm nervous about my Titans 9.5 win bet. Because much like I feel like there are 3 teams I'm nervous about in December. We talked about 2 of them, and the Titans are the third one that I'm concerned about in December, because that defensive performance was disgusting against the Browns. Now, granted, credit Stefanski, they practiced all week to stop Chubb and to stop Hunt, and all of a sudden Baker came out and threw every down.
Yeah,
and they weren't ready for that. They were like, "What are we doing? We practiced stopping the run, and now we're stuck." And that showed a little bit of an inflexibility with Mike Vrabel, which kind of exposed him a little bit there, that they couldn't get out of their defensive sets. But I'm comfortable that they win. I don't know about the 7.5.
Yeah, my guess is that they will say, well, we'll try this again. We'll stop James Robinson. Then if Mike Lennon can beat us with, DJ Chark and Colin Johnson, we'll take our chances. But over a touchdown, I get nervous regardless. I'm on that side, but I'd be willing to pass. Okay. Any other games that you're kind of liking at all?
No, not really. I looked at if the Panthers had Christian McCaffrey, I would have taken the Panthers. Yeah. But without Christian McCaffrey, that's a complete no play now. I have to stay far, far away from that game, and it's really kind of frustrating because.
And again, they don't have DJ. I'm sure DJ Moore is not going to play, given that he's on the COVID list, and we don't even know if Curtis Samuel is going to play because he's a close contact.
I can't back Drew Lock, so it's like
no. So stay away game. Completely stay away game.
So that was the only side I would have, with McCaffrey playing. I would have said I would have been on the table here, 3.5 for the Panthers, but just too much uncertainty. So that was the only other game that I was kind of looking at, and then gun to my head, if I had to pick it, I would take the Jets plus 13.5 against the Seahawks.
Yeah. Also another game where there's no way for me to analyze that game and think that the value isn't on the Jets.
Yeah.
And there's no way I can back the Jets in the game. That's what that game boils down to at this point.
The pros will take it. The pros who bet the board will take 13.5.
The pros are going to pound that number without a doubt. They will love the 13.5. They will be more, because that is value on the Jets. And the Jets, to their quote-unquote credit, are playing better offensively. They're down Denzel Mims. That's not going to make a huge difference, but it does take away one of their weapons. But yeah, the Seahawks probably could win this game by 25 points if they decided to do it. But the Seahawks, they like to play close games. It's just what they do.
Something's up there, though. Something's going on in Seattle. Something's not right now with them.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Pete Carroll or Russell Wilson believing his own press clippings too much, or the league figuring out DK or what, but it's not looking great. The whole MVP Russ campaign has really stalled.
Oh yeah, no, I think that unless he goes nuts at the end, I think that race is pretty much over to the extent he was in it. I think it comes down to Mahomes, maybe Rodgers, maybe Allen if he has a huge finish. Who knows? All right, let's get to a couple other games here, and I have a slight lean on a couple of them, but not strong. How do you feel about the Chiefs laying 7.5 to the Dolphins in Miami?
See, Tua playing leads me to bet the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So if it was Fitzpatrick, I would probably bet I'd probably bet the Miami Dolphins if it was Fitzpatrick. But I just don't think Tua is the right guy to be playing right now. And I just can't believe that the team consistently wants to force Tua. And he's a game manager at best. He's accurate with the football. I get it. But you're going to ride your defense. And the problem is when you're trying to stop the Chiefs, yikes. I mean, you've got to be able to score with them. I don't care how good your defense is. You got to be able to score with them. And I don't think Miami can score with them. So my only concern is just that Dolphins defense has been so good at turning the football over.
Yeah.
So what happens if they get a fumble, a couple of picks or whatever it might be? And, the Chiefs haven't really been interested in killing people. They just want to win the game.
It's true.
They want to go into the playoffs, and that's when they'll really turn it on. Yeah. But they're winning games by 4 to 5 points, a bit more too much for my liking to back them there.
I agree. That really is the thing. They don't have we're going to win this game by 20 points at all. They just don't seem interested in, like you said, because you definitely think you get Patrick Mahomes, you have 45 seconds and no timeouts to drive the entire field. And it's like just a snap of his fingers and it's done. They could score whenever they want to do it, but they just don't seem interested in really going. You've got, again, the Dolphins, you mentioned it with their defense, good at causing turnovers, but Mahomes doesn't throw picks really, so you'd really need something crazy. And I do see the scenario where the Chiefs get up big and you're going to force Tua to chase points, and I just don't think that's going to be pretty. But I don't love it at over a touchdown just because, again, as you said, the Chiefs don't really put people away. How about
the Bucs? The Bucs game is the clearest. They had 17 points in the first quarter, and they got outscored 17-7 the rest of the way.
Right.
So. Yeah. That's my fear is that they'll get up big and go, okay, we're done. And it's like, guys, you got 3 quarters left and you gotta keep going. And then they just don't care. So that's a problem. And it could burn them in the playoffs, but that's a problem right now in terms of focusing for 4 quarters.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. What do you think about the Packers laying 7.5 to the Lions in Detroit?
Hate the number. I would have bet it. I think, like I mentioned last week, that taking the Lions in a spot to go ahead and win because it's now 3-0 for teams that after they fire their coach, they've won the next game outright. Right. So we talked about it. I said, look,
somebody pointed that out on Twitter, by the way.
I said, take the Lions. Yeah. I said, that this is just, forget about what's going on. They're going to beat the Bears just simply because, they just fired Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn.
Right.
And then the fumble happens by, Mitchell Trubisky, which is, kind of like a redundant comment, but, go ahead and he just blows the game. And then so they go ahead and win it. And there you go. So this is a classic letdown spot, right? You win a game you're not supposed to. Now it's interim coach this, interim coach that. They all know they're out at the end of the year. And you're taking on Aaron Rodgers, who's still very much in not just the MVP race, but also trying to contend for playoff positioning here.
Yep.
I just don't like the hook.
Yep.
On the road. 7.5 just seems to be a little bit too, that's a little bit too much.
That's the exact same analysis I have. I like the Packers in this game. I think they're going to win. The hook scares me too much because
this is a teaser game. This is teaser. This is Peralt 2-team teaser written all over it. All over it.
I love the Peralt 2-team teasers. I agree. Yeah, this is just something where once because you're going to have Stafford will throw. There's not going to be any Kenny Golladay in this game, but they should have DeAndre Swift back. But regardless, they're gonna find a way to put up points and keep it, potentially from becoming a blowout. So I agree. Over the hook, I don't like it. What about the Cowboys laying 3.5 to the Bengals in Cincinnati?
I can't pick either team. I can't trust either team. They both stink. They're both absolutely atrocious football teams.
Yep.
And it's just, okay, who is going to be worse? Like who's going to be the worst of the two? And both our teams have backup quarterbacks. Both have defenses that give up big numbers. Both have significant injuries you have to worry about. I mean, the Cowboys have a better receiving core, obviously, but I mean, no, just absolutely. Yeah. This is like my least favorite game of the week.
Yeah, it's gross. It's gross. I think we can assume that Ryan Finley is going to be the quarterback for the Bengals, in which case, I feel like, do you know the movie The Princess Bride, Matt?
Yep.
All right, so I feel like it's that scene where Vizzini is trying to figure out the wine, like which one has the
character
poison.
Names. You know the character names.
Oh, Matt, if we ever want to go pop culture or movies, we'll talk about all day long.
I know the actor's name. I don't know the character's name.
And he's saying, but you would have known that I know this, so I clearly cannot choose the wine in front of me. That's how I feel when I analyze this game. Right. Like, this is why I cannot choose the Bengals. This is why I cannot choose the Cowboys. So a complete stay away from me. I'm glad you feel the same.
Yeah.
I'm actually interested to see what you think about this next one. The Texans are laying 1.5 to the Bears in Chicago.
See, there's a couple things going on one, I don't like if this is Houston, I would say different story. It's outdoors in Chicago. So weather's a question there for me.
Yep.
They don't run the football. Texans do. You're throwing like crazy. So what happens if it's really cold and nasty? I haven't seen the weather yet. So, but I can't, again, this is another one of these teams with interim coaches. As we head towards the final 4 weeks, what are they playing for?
Right.
Like, what's the incentive for this Texans team to lay out, for a receiver to lay out and get his head taken off? What's the incentive for a defensive lineman to go ahead and dive on a football or dive and make himself vulnerable? I don't know what these teams are playing for. I mean, maybe Matt Nagy's going to be fired, but we know there's a new coach coming in Houston. So I can't trust either one of these teams, although I do think if you're picking on quarterbacks, Houston's got the better quarterback, clearly. Coaches, though, the Bears slightly have the better coach. It's hard. If I had to pick a side, I probably would take the home team.
Yeah, I have been on both sides of this game to the extent I tried to pick a side, which I don't want to do because there are times you don't have to bet on every game, everyone. Like you can take some games off. I'm going to be taking the Cowboys-Bengals game off. I'm probably going to be taking this one because I've talked myself into both sides of this game, which is really more that I've talked myself out of the other side of this game because it's just something where I don't trust either team. I don't trust either quarterback. So I'm not going anywhere near it. If you had brought it up, I would have just said, nope, I've got nothing on it. And if you can convince me, then you are better at this than I am. Last game, I think we've touched everything else. The 49ers laying 3.5 to the Washington football team.
Isn't this the classic letdown spot for Washington? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Isn't this just the, 5, 6, 7 point loss to the 49ers? They just run the ball down their throats and get out of there with a win. I mean, it's just... that was a Super Bowl performance. Alex Smith had 300 yards passing. He was on fire in the second half. Chase Young came to life. That goal line stand was gigantic, the play Chase Young made. They finally made a couple of big plays on Big Ben late to intercept the football, to win the football game. I mean, everything went right for them against the Steelers. I think it probably comes back. If I had to pick it, I'd say San Francisco, but I hate backup quarterbacks.
I don't like the hook. It's 3.5. Yeah. It's 3 now, the consensus line. I'd be much more willing to take the 49. If you came in and it was 3 and you wanted the 49ers, I would take them because for all the reasons. This is like you think about classic, buy low, sell high. I mean, there is no selling high. There is no selling higher than what Washington just did. The 49ers just got obliterated by the Bills on national television, so that's a spot where you buy them low. So I would take them, but over the hook, I don't like it. So, all right, Matt, I think we've got it. I think we've got the 5, and that is the Rams laying 5.5 points to the Patriots, unless the Patriots cover that spread, in which case we never picked it, and you can't prove it. The Bucs laying 6.5 to the Vikings. The Colts laying 2.5 to the Raiders. The Steelers getting 2.5 from the Bills, and the Ravens laying 1.5 to the Browns.
Oh, so say that again. So Bucs minus 6.5.
Yeah, Bucs minus 6.5 to the Vikes, right?
Okay.
The Colts minus 2.5 to the Raiders.
Yeah.
The Steelers getting 2.5 from the Bills.
I was nervous that we were going all favorites.
No, I know. We really is. I mean, it's too many favorites, but to be fair, like one of the favorites, the Ravens are laying 1.5.
That's not.
Yeah, the Colts are laying 2.5.
They're short favorites. So we have 4 dogs. We have 4 favorites, 1 dog, but really 2 dogs because of the Ravens. So it's really a 3-2 card. I'm fine with that. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, and again, we're honest. We'll let you know if we changed one in this last one. I can't. What did we change it to, Matt? Oh, the Colts. We swapped in the Colts in this last one, and we took out the Chiefs, which was a good swap, a very good swap. And again, that was a huge spread, which I just think we can't do with the Chiefs at this point anymore because they're not interested in it. All right, that is great. We'll tweet it out. So you'll know when we stop recording this because there's about to be a tweet that's going to come out that we're going to take this game. But we are going to take the Rams. I hope it goes well. I hope the rest of our picks go well. As always, don't forget to tune in to Matt's live stream. Matt, what have we decided to do now with the props that we're going to do here?
Oh, great point. Yeah. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. So your props are going to be my props.
Okay.
So I'm going to bet your props every week.
Okay.
So you're going to give me 5. Okay. I'm going to bet it, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell everyone your props, which are becoming the Daily Juice live stream props every single week.
Yep.
So kind of combining our efforts here down the stretch because you're doing all this great work to break down games and making projections. Normally you were giving 2 to 3, but since I think you're on an 8-2 run
I think
props.
actually I might be 8-0. I think I lost the 2 before that. I think the last 3 weeks, I may be wrong. I think it might be 8-0 over the last.
Okay,
3.
That's possible. I think I was adding it up, so very possible 8 in a row and 8 out of your last 10 you've hit. So I think it's better. I've been going 2-2 or 1-3 pretty much every Sunday. So I think it's better and smarter for the audience and better for the listeners to just take your props, make them my props, and go ahead and give them out on the live stream.
I think that's totally fine. And again, my process, just so everybody knows, I do actual projections because I project for my fantasy rankings. And then usually what I will do when I have time is I will compare my projections to the available props in the market. Part of the reason why I haven't been great about it with Matt, poor Matt on the live stream, is like, where are the props, dude? And I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm busy. Is because my process of refining my projections is like a 4 or 5 hour process. Matt knows I'm almost always messaging him at like 1 a.m. my time, 2 a.m. on Saturday mornings, because that's what I do. That's how I need to do. I need to get all the available information. But we have been on a heater. So we will try to keep that going. We'll try to keep Matt's NFL betting going. Again, we're going to take this through to the end of the year. Then we're going to figure out, whatever we'll be doing with the playoffs. But thanks for sticking with us. Hopefully we'll get back and closer to finishing into the money. Again, my name is Dan Harris. That's Matt Peralt. You can find us on Twitter at DanHarris80 and at Sports Talk Matt. And for now, we will talk to you next week at the same time.